Hello there. Welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast, Hockey Edition. My name is Kevin Olenek. And I know what you're thinking. Didn't you say that we were going to go every 2 weeks talking about hockey now that it is the summer? I mean, what could there possibly be there to talk about that we're back again in another week? Let's think here.
And I'm sure that Bob Hartley's thinking, cost me $50,000 at the end of the last one, what's going to happen on the other? But there was no hesitation. A hit by Edler, a reaction in the corner, and as soon as the extra saw who he had on his back, he started going. But that's an angry looking man. That is. You're wrestling with a bull there. And at the end of last game, it was the fact that, and you've got the situation where a slash on the hands of Burrows, which caused an awful lot of discussion by the exit. So there's history there, lots of talk between the benches that you see so often.
As it builds, as the series goes on, and as we go to Game 4.
Yes, the history between Kevin Bieksa and the newly acquired Michael Ferlund. There's also, maybe we can talk about restricted free agency.
And we hold the world ransom for $1 million.
Don't you think we should maybe ask for more than $1 million? $1 million isn't exactly a lot of money these days.
Or we can talk about the Calgary Stampede.
Yahoo!
Or even how a young prospect became a first-round pick in the National Hockey League. Or we could talk about the best hockey social media present. One thing is for absolutely certain. We are not discussing which body part we will be sacrificing for your team to win the Stanley Cup.
Thank goodness.
Because that is gross. Welcome, everyone. Yes, that is the topics that we are coming on. And yes, welcome. Happy Saturday to you. Happy Summer Saturday. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. Subscribe to all podcasts on iTunes or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Spotify, Google, etc. Spreaker.com, KEVOLE. Twitter, Facebook, Kevin Olenek, etc., etc., etc. The voices that you heard that Yahooed was Sean. Hello, Sean. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. And, of course, Heidi was grossed out by things. And how are you?
I'm good, Kevin.
Good. And everything is well in the land of Calgary?
Yep. Yeah, it's all good here.
All good here. You guys are really talkative, so that's great. So we'll maybe see if Tyler is okay. Tyler, are you okay?
Yeah, we survived the 3 nights of wild thunderstorms here earlier in the week in Terrace. It was a little unusual, but times are good here as well.
Well, Tyler, you are not the only representative of the northern BC land that is with us today. Usually you are representing the north, but we have a guest today. She is a digital media journalist in BC's northern capital at PGMatters, Glacier Media, BC journalism alumni, and her tweets and thoughts are her own. And she has followed the career of Alex Newhook, which we will get into a little bit later. Hello, Jess Fedigan. It is nice to hear your voice. And how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Thank you for coming on, taking the time for coming on.
Yeah, no worries.
Yes. And I guess we got to start, it is usually a dead off season in many places around Hockeyland. But, when you're following the Vancouver Canucks, there is always some sort of adventure or soap opera or something that happens. And this week was probably a little bit no different because the signing, and it kind of impacts the Calgary Flames as well, is Michael Ferlund has joined the Vancouver Canucks. He signed a contract 4 years, $14 million. I talked a little bit about it on the day of the signing, but I want to hear from you guys. How happy / sad are you that Michael Ferlund is a member of the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, the shit disturber that I am, being a Canucks fan in Calgary, loves it. It's going to be fun to see him going in on the forecheck versus the Flames defense, as opposed to what we saw back in a few years ago in the playoffs where he was doing that to the Canucks defense. So I think that he adds that to the team, and that will be a good addition to the top six for the Canucks.
Yeah, no,
I'm excited about it. I think it's clear that this signing and the Jordy Ben signing are an indication the Canucks feel they weren't tough enough last year. So, and Ferlund can play. I think for a lot of Canuck fans, the memories of that 2015 playoff series are still pretty fresh.
Yeah, over here, like I like in Calgary, as being somebody who always liked Ferlund and his antics, and as Sean said, liking shit disturbers. I'm looking forward to this kind of renewed rivalry now again between the Flames and Canucks. That I think it's gonna help.
Jess, what did you think?
Personally, I liked it. I like that he's young. My fiance, ironically, is a Flames fan, and I'm a Canucks fan. So during that playoff series in 2015, we were at one of the games as well. So seeing him in person, and the fact that he scored 3 goals in a 6-game series against us, it'll be nice to have him on our side.
Yeah, I'm amazed that a Flames fan and a Canuck fan can be in a relationship together. So maybe that's a separate podcast.
It is a little interesting.
What am I questioning? Here's a couple of things that I'm a little wondering about. His first halves have been really strong. But his second halves have not. He went on a pretty long slump last year when he was in Carolina, scored 1 goal, I think, in 24 games. He went 35 games in the last season in Calgary without a goal. Are you concerned about that? Or how are you hoping the Canucks handle that situation?
It's a little concerning, but with the way that the Canucks have put together their team and the amount of time they have the amount of players they have to rotate through the top 3 lines, I think if he does go on a bit of a slump, but that they have other players to move up and see what they can do. So I think there's just, with the depth that the Canucks have now, I think there's options, and you go with the hot hand on the wings of Pettersson and Horvat.
Yeah, as far as Ferlund having maybe a dip at some point later in the season or whatever, I mean, slumps come and go. Sometimes players start slow and finish strong. It's not something that I would be too concerned with. It's the overall body of work, and the style of play is something that Canucks were lacking.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I don't think you guys need to worry too much, even if he doesn't if he isn't putting up a ton of points or anything like that, because he'll give you that presence, that what it was Brian Burke say, truculence.
Mm-hmm.
You'll at least have that. So I wouldn't worry too much about maybe the lack of point production and stuff like that.
Jess, did you have any thoughts? Or
I think, if he does struggle offensively, he can make up for it physically.
Okay, that's fair. Now, I guess, and the other question that I have is, I'm really curious how this fan base is going to take to him. I think that there's a lot to like about Michael Ferlund. I kind of relate him a little bit to Alex Burrows. He's sort of the same kind of guy in the sense of, he's a guy that a lot of other teams may not like the way he plays or some of the things or his antics on the ice. But if you got to know him as a person, his story is quite remarkable. And, of course, Alex Burrows is going to be in the Ring of Honor December 3rd against Ottawa. Cheap plug. Another story for the week. But what do you think in terms of the overall fan base, when or if this long slump happens? Because this fan base is Canuck Twitter, Sean, Tyler, and Jess no doubt know this more than all of us, can be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for diplomatically? There could be some debates. How do you expect the fan base to react to what Ferlund's going to be?
Well, I think the fact that he's only signed for $3.5 million will help that. He can play up and down the lineup. He can be a physical force, and as long as he continues to be a physical force, I think the majority of fans are going to be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt if he goes into a slump during the season. I just, if he was, when the news came out, Canucks Twitter did its normal routine of completely overreact and react to the first or second reports of what the contract is going to be when they're almost always wrong, and then go from there. But as I said, at $3.5 million, I really don't think there should be too much of the overreaction if he goes into a slump. It's not like he's making $6 million like Louis Eriksson.
Yeah, I was just going to add that on there at the end. Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's the thing.
There was a lot of, from what I saw on Canucks Twitter, there was a lot of people that thought that Jim Benning had lost his mind.
You were seeing that, hey? I think for people, that fourth year of the contract, that's the ongoing kind of trend with Jim Benning free agent signings is the length of them. There's been some range in terms of the cap hit, but the level of commitment in terms of number of years is what people keep getting upset about. But like Sean just said, I mean, it's not $6 million at least.
Well, to me, you have to compromise in somewhere, and some places. And if I was led to what I was reading or what I heard, is that there were a few other teams, and everyone was offering 3. And you have to make some sort of adjustment at some point to make sure that you get the player. So if it's either an extra year or more money, I probably would go the extra year if it's only one more year. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think that this is a crime. It's a pretty reasonable contract. It's not Louis Eriksson. You're right, Louis Eriksson's $6 million. And he, after 4 years, he's 31 years old. It's not like he's 906 and I'm going to be sent off to the old folks home. He's still probably going to be a reasonably productive player that if you do need to trade him, that's not a terrible contract that someone can take if it gets to that point. So I don't. Yeah, you have to compromise.
Should be noted. There's a no movement clause in there as well, Kevin.
Yeah, that I understand that, but what I'm saying in terms of big picture is it's not terrible. And I do believe, did he get Seattle protection or did he not? I think he did get Seattle protection.
He didn't get Seattle protection. He's only got the no movement clause for the first 2 years. And and then he's got a modified no trade clause for the final 2 years. And with the Seattle expansion draft, and I think this has been something that needs to be clarified and just by the media and the league and all that, so that everyone actually understands that, is even though the draft happens in the second year of Ferlund's contract, the 21-22 was that 2021, but all the clauses that matter and determine whether a player is eligible to be picked or has to be automatically protected by a team fall on the next season, because that's the season that they're drafting for. So he didn't get the expansion draft protection, and he's got a modified no trade clause for the final 2 years of that deal. So there is movement available to the Canucks if needed.
Yeah, so it's pretty flexible. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's. My point is it's not terrible. It's not going to bound the Canucks in any way, shape, or form. And actually, I would think it might give a few more options. And I guess the next step is where would you start Ferlund? Would you start him with Pettersson and Besser? Would you start him with Horvat? What are you thinking here?
I started with Pettersson and Besser for sure. Go back, if you look at where he's had most success is when he's been played in that role with the top end playmakers and offensive players with Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan in Calgary and then Sebastian Aho in Carolina. And you go from there and see if he can stretch out the success he's proven that he can have in that role longer throughout the season, and then go from there.
I have a different view, but I'd love to hear what your guys' view is.
No, I'm kind of like with Sean on that. Like at first, like Sean said this to me the other day when we saw each other, and I was like, "Oh yeah, funny, put him with Pettersson and Besser." But like, yeah, sure, why not? Because he did play really well when he played with the top guys when he was in Calgary. So yeah, you might as well start him at the top and see what happens.
I think most people's curiosity amongst the Canuck fan base would be to see what that looks like. But the other part of this too is giving Horvat somebody to work with too. I mean, he tends to not have as much.
But yeah, if you're giving putting Ferlund on that first line, then you're bucking JT Miller down to play with Bo Horvat and Tyler Pearson. I think that line could be a very good line working together. And JT Miller, well, another left shot. That's 3 left shots on the line, which isn't ideal. Miller has proven that he can play both wings as well as center. So I think that adds an option there. And I think and Miller has proven to be a bit more of a playmaker and has more skill than I think some people are giving him credit for. And I think that going with a Ferlund, Pettersson, Besser, and then Pearson, Horvat, Miller top 6, I think is really good. And then you just you continue to shuffle and play around with the lines to see what works, because Green isn't shy about throwing the lines into the blender.
Jess, what do you think?
I think starting him with Besser and Pettersson is a good idea. I think Besser and Pettersson need someone more physical on their line. So in that sense, I mean, give him a shot and see what happens.
I kind of see what you're saying, but the other side of that is I'm kind of intrigued what Ferlund I think it was. We have to applaud Sean because he had a great tweet this week that got on the radio. So I'm just going to applaud Sean about the idea, because they're talking about on Sportsnet 650 about the idea of Ferlund being a protector and not allowing players to take cheap shots at the Petterssons and the Bessers, and even in Calgary when he was with Monahan and Gaudreau, which was a 3 left-handed shot line that worked out pretty well. They didn't bring him in necessarily to be like the old school tough guy, but to be a forechecking presence. So I'm kind of intrigued what he would do with Horvat and Pearson as well. And I am actually kind of intrigued to see what Ferlund and Virtanen would do if you put them together, because I do think that there's some potential there. Ultimately, I think you want him. I do see your point in terms of what Pettersson and Besser need in terms of that, but I am intrigued, and I think this is what makes this signing so great for the Canucks, is you have the ability to move this guy around and kind of move your lines around, and you have an overall, for the most part, 8 of your top 9 forwards. I guess the question is what happens between Sutter and Gaudette, if Sutter is back next year or not. I suspect that he is. But you've got Pettersson, Miller, Besser, Ferlund, Horvat, Pearson. You've got a combination of Gaudette or Sutter, Ferlund, Virtanen. I don't think that's a terrible top 9. And I think did I mention Josh Levo in there? I meant Josh Levo in there as well. You don't have a terrible top 9 overall. that you can do some things, and you got a pretty good size forward group.
And yeah, that's sort of what I was going on as well. Is I think you can start them there, but the depth on both wings that they have through the top nine, there's outside of Besser, there really isn't someone who I would say is locked in at a spot in that top nine, and you can shuffle them up and down the lineup as needed, and then even throwing in with Levo as well, and Vertanen and Berchi, and you could even say that they're pretty deep all the way down to the fourth line. The only issue that I think a lot of Canucks fans are worried about is the centers in the bottom six, but at least on wing, I think the Canucks are in good shape.
Question for the rest of you: do you see Jake Virtanen sticking with the Canucks given the Ferlund signing? I'm not so sure anymore, but I mean, I'd like him to stay, but I'm not so sure that his spot is as safe now.
I don't think it's safe. Benning did mention that Ferlund would be a good player for Jake to model his game after and see how he performs like night in and night out. So I think that's part of the reason they brought him Ferlund in. But it just comes down to what is needed to make the salary cap work, because one, Roussel will be starting on the long-term injury list, and whether or not they have to put him on that to make it work salary cap wise to start the season comes down to whether or not they can move on from a Sutter or a Louis Eriksson. So if they can do that and not give up Virtanen, I think that would be an ideal situation for the Canucks, but they may have to throw Virtanen in as your favorite word there, Tyler, a sweetener.
A sweetener.
Yes. We had to get sweetener into the podcast.
Sweetener. I don't know. I'm one of those guys that I'm a little frightened of giving up. Would be frightened of giving up a Jake Virtanen. I still think that this guy has something that he can give. He's a great skater. He's a physical presence. He's a right-hand shot. In terms of what was expected in terms of a sixth pick in the first round of the draft, he may not ever turn out to be that. But I still think that I think that he's a very useful player that may hit his stride a little bit later on in his career, that I'm loath to give up on him. I would be more open to the idea, and I know he's more skilled, and I think there's health concerns for sure, but if I was to say, okay, which would be a better, sorry, Tyler, I have to use the word again, sweetener, I would be more willing to give up a Sven Berchi than a Jake Virtanen.
I agree with that.
Well, I think it's not necessarily Sven Berchi. It's not necessarily a potential sweetener, but more of just a someone that they can move out to create that cap space. I think because depending on I'm not sure there's a trade out there for Louis Eriksson, and then even if you send him down to the AHL or loan him out to Europe, you're only gaining just over $1 million in cap space. And if you go on any one of the sites, cap friendly, Puckpedia, and you do the armchair GM modes and all that, and you figure it out. With Roussel on the long-term injury reserve, then the Canucks still need to make two moves to really be cap compliant. And even if they are putting Schaller and Eriksson down to the minors or to Europe if it's Eriksson's case, they're good. But once Roussel comes back, then they still have they're still way too tight to the cap to have any sort of flexibility for short-term injuries. So they still need to make one move here, and whether that's Berchi, Sutter, or Louis Eriksson, who are the three names that have come up as potential moves out to make that room, the Canucks need to find a way to do one.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe one of those moves will be coming before Brock Besser gets signed, and then what happens with Nikolai Goldobin as well.
Oh yeah, there's him too. I didn't forget about him, but I don't know if he's as big of a sweetener as Berchi and Virtanen to me. But
no.
Well, I think they want to keep Goldobin, and I don't think he's got any sort of value to really help offload one of those contracts, right? So, I do think they want to bring him back, but I think fans need to temper their expectations on where he fits in this roster.
Yeah. Jess, what do you think?
Sorry, I just forgot to hit the unmute button.
Okay.
It was a Virtanen, sorry?
Yeah, in terms of a sweetener, like if you had to, if a GM was calling you, would you say, in terms of a sweetener for Louis Eriksson, that famous word, would you rather lose Berchi or Virtanen?
I like what Berchi's done, so I personally would rather give up for Virtanen than a Berchi.
Okay. So you're more on the Berchi side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heidi, what about you?
I'm not going to lie. I don't really have an opinion, so whatever you guys think.
My concern with Berchi is the injury history, right? Like, I mean, he's a better player in my opinion overall than Jake Virtanen, and I mean, when he is healthy, he's had some productive stretches. He's looked good with Bo Horvat, but reliability is a concern there, and to clear that cap hit off the salary structure would help the Canucks immensely. So I don't know. I mean, just it seems a little more out of necessity to find a way to move on from Berchi than anything else for me.
Yeah. It's health, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I guess to see what happens, and I think how things develop overall. I mean, there's still 3 months to go before the start of the season, so you don't need to necessarily do anything now. A couple quick things though. I wonder, before I get to Besser, I wonder if the idea of Nikolai Goldobin, we've talked about this with Juolevi a lot, about spending a season in Utica. I wonder how much that would actually help Goldobin if he spent the entire year in Utica and say, okay, you're not coming up. We're going to have you down in the minors. You're going to develop for the year, and then we're going to see what happens after that. I mean, I know you don't want to play in Utica. I know that may not be your desire, but at this point, that's probably the best thing for you.
I think he's past that, and I think I don't think that would go over well with him. And I think at that point he'd probably be going over back home to Russia to do if he's not playing in any NHL. So as much as it might help him, I don't see that going over well enough, and he'd likely be going back over to Russia if he got sent down.
I think that'd be sad for him. I don't know. I mean, yes, it might be. I mean, he might be an NHL player. He might make an argument for an NHL player, but he hasn't shown it consistently. And I do think that there can be something he can learn from this.
Well, yeah, and you can say that with a lot of players, but when you have the lure of going back home to Russia and making a significant amount more money in a arguably better league, I think that's just the reality of things.
Fair. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I just think in regards to the first round pick, the Vasily Podkolzin, I mean, they're probably looking at that and saying that this guy's probably never going to be in the AHL. He's going to play out his couple of years in the KHL. We're going to hope he's ready to crack the Canucks lineup and he sticks. That's it looks like that's the plan.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just a reality of dealing with Russian players now. I mean, they have an attractive option back home.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. And I also think they have a number in mind. I think from what I can see here, there is a number in mind that I think that they have for Besser that I think both sides, and, with the Flames, Heidi, with David Rittich, I know Trey Levin has said this too, they have a number in mind with David Rittich that I think that they're at an understanding with David Rittich in Calgary. I imagine that that's the same with Brock Besser. I imagine that they both have a number that I think that they're close to at least agreeing to, that they know and they've budgeted already in terms of where the salary cap is.
I think the cap figure for Besser is I think they're close on that. It's the term.
Yeah.
It's the term that's the sticking point, because with the American TV deal coming up, coming due and getting a new one in 2 years' time, I do think that I think this is the holdup with a lot of our restricted free agents too, because you're looking at these guys are looking at that going, do I want to lock in long term and get McKinnon, or do I want to sign a little bit shorter term and then get the bump with the next contract when the salary cap goes up $10 million?
Yeah. I can see some players trying to bet on themselves a little bit. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I can see that being a possibility. Yeah. Tyler or Jess or Heidi, do you have anything to say on that? Or
no?
Okay. The other story that I feel like this is a very good news story overall, and I'm going to read a tweet from Jeff Patterson about him. See, kids, that's how you get ahead in this biz. Work damn hard. Know your stuff. Cobble together 10 freelance gigs. Network. Keep churning out the good content. Rise above the Twitter noise, and let your work speak for itself. Easy, right? Ryan Beach. Of course, that's the new Ryan Beach, of course, being hired as the Canucks and the video analyst department. You guys, I think it's a great story about a guy that has worked really hard, no matter which side. He has been he's not a huge crap disturber. He's displayed some kind words. He's kept his content up, and he's been rewarded for his work. And I think that that's great.
Yeah, he's worked his butt off. He became, especially, he was the person you followed to get the PD updates when Pedersen was in Sweden. So he's gone from doing his own little podcast and then getting into video scouting with online and sharing that, and then joining Canucks Army, and then starting his own website as well, to getting a job with the Canucks, and that's fantastic. And I think it's a really good step in the right direction for the Canucks as an organization as well.
It does seem like a significant shift by the Canucks organization to go this path. It was, like, even if you went back a few years ago, nobody would have predicted any kind of hire like this, I don't think.
Why is that? You think they were too old school?
Yeah, I think they were just feeling more old school back then. I mean, it looks like there's a little more open-mindedness now in the organization as far as bringing in some younger, fresher ideas there.
Yeah, but I think, to the amount of time that people like Ryan Beach, Cam Robinson, Derek Newmeyer, others have done on scouting, I think is starting to. I think that teams are starting to see that, and they're seeing it, that they're taking the time, they're viewing quality content, and I think it's an interesting way to for people to hire someone, in terms of, like, you know what, I think it tells teams that this is a guy that is a go-getter. He's willing to do whatever it takes, and using that in air quotes, to get the job done. He's not taking shortcuts. It's sort of, in the old school radio media biz, and I think Tyler and Jess understand this as well, is this the kind of the idea of like, working in the quote-unquote small town until you get to the big market. This is sort of the new way of doing that, and I think the kudos for the Canucks to kind of be thinking outside the box in this way. Not that the traditional scouting way is wrong or out of date or out of touch, but it's certainly a younger, fresher mind that you can bring into your organization.
And it's not like he's just doing scouting. He's going to be working in with the analytics as well, because that's something that I think the Canucks have been sort of behind the times on, and Jim Benning and his meat and potatoes ways haven't really embraced them too much. And I think this is a good show of faith that they are starting to realize that there is a place in the hockey sphere for these analytics and data driven analysis of players.
Yeah. Heidi, did you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, no, like with not knowing like this individual's work and stuff though, but like I echo this idea that of hiring differently with not like just looking at a resume and seeing, oh, he's worked for other teams and all that stuff, like somebody who actually like cut their teeth working themselves and working and said like freelancing and starting their own stuff. And yeah, it's a good move that I think by the Canucks for sure.
Yeah. I do think teams are going to start thinking this way a little bit more. I think you'll see other teams start thinking about this. Like, I'm not saying that Cam Robinson is going to be hired by a team very soon, but I think we're starting to see a little bit more of outside of the box thinking coming to the NHL, which is about time, quite frankly. But I think that this is a good sign for the NHL, and congratulations to Ryan. We invite you on the show sometime. Come talk with us about your process and what you've done as well. So, yeah, I think a great move. A guy that I think most Vancouver media has been applauding that got that. So I think that's really good as well.
And just one more thing, that makes number 11, so the 11th person to graduate from Canucks Army to an NHL team.
Well, there we go. Wow.
Yeah, and now I believe the first to do it with the hometown team as well, right? These other guys all went to other places.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. See, you kids, you keep working hard out there, and you'll get some of your success. That's my old man voice. I was going to try to do Don Cherry, but I don't do a very good Don Cherry voice. Which just leads to, of course, taking chances and betting on yourself. We talked a little bit about that with Brock Besser in terms of the short term. There was a head scratcher signing this week that I think some people, from one side of the perspective, it was like, how did you, as a GM, let Doug Wilson get away with this and not at least do an offer sheet for this guy? And on the other end of it was like, you are worth a lot more than what you signed for, and why as a player are you doing that? What did you think of the Kevin Labanc signing in San Jose of $1 million?
Like you said, they're Kevin. It's a bit of a head scratcher, and the fact that if he was under normal circumstances, he would sign for $3 to $4 million at the very least. He's coming off a 50-point season, constantly growing. He's a big part of the first power play unit in San Jose. But they've done this before, not to this extreme, but they've done this before with other players who have signed one-year deals, and then they've had this sort of verbal agreement that they'll take care of them after this year is up, and I think you'll see a big money long-term deal for Labanc going before this time next year comes up. So I think that's sort of what's going on, and it's the new way to quote unquote circumvent the salary cap.
Yeah, I was going to say the Players Association must hate this contract. I mean, it just goes against everything they're trying to do by pushing up the floor essentially, and pushing up the median salary, so to speak. You must really like San Jose. Other players have really liked San Jose and have been willing to take decent deals, but this is a discount of all discounts. It's very surprising.
Yeah, Heidi, what did you think?
Meh. I don't feel either way. Like it's something I saw come across, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can imagine that San Jose is not a bad place to play, though. I mean, the weather is nice, and it seems like a pretty fun place. So, sure, why not?
I think that this comes to the idea about where we are at matching offer sheets and where we are at doing the offer sheet, and Doug Wilson knowing that there's not a team that is necessarily going to go after into the offer sheet, and he also knows that Labanc is not going to sign an offer sheet, so he is at a significant advantage in terms of what he can do in this situation like this. He knows Labanc isn't going to sign. He knows Labanc probably, as Heidi says, loves the land of San Jose. And he knows that no GM is going to do an offer sheet. So he can sign this guy for $1 million. He can say, we'll deal with this later, and we'll figure it out. And, they must think, maybe some people disagree with this, but they must think that they're close to getting a Stanley Cup. And they've got an opportunity here to do something special.
I think part of it was because they had lost Pavelski and they were still in cap trouble, that they needed someone to take a significant discount, and they got Labanc to do it because they're still going to get Thornton to sign, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Marleau sign back there. So I think this just helps. This was the get out of the cap jail free card for Doug Wilson and the Sharks.
Yeah, certainly a little luck, but also I think credit him for figuring that out. Credit him for using the skill as well, I guess. And again, we still have had only that one offer sheet of Sebastian Aho. We have heard talk, it has not happened, that Mitch Marner has been going to be offer sheeted. That has not happened yet. Even some talk that it was the Columbus Blue Jackets, even though Jarkko Kekalainen has actually spoken in disgust about the offer sheet. That hasn't happened yet. I'm not suspecting, I've had this hope that we would get this, but I think at this point in time, I think that we're only going to see I can't see another one. Maybe someone might take a shot at Patrick Laine. Someone may be bold enough to take one at Mitch Marner, but I'm starting to become a little bit more cynical about this, which is making me kind of sad. But I don't know about where you guys are at that. But
I just feel like if there was going to be an offer sheet to Marner, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. The only other thought process I have is that depending on how long who's continues to hold out late, do you wait and potentially make an offer sheet if it's late September, early October, when you can't be 10% over the salary cap, and you have to find a way to be salary cap compliant really quick, and you're putting a massive time crunch pressure on the team that the team that has to make a decision. So whether that's Winnipeg or Toronto or Tampa or Boston or whoever's still holding out, I would say that might be the next time we see a offer sheet is if these young guys are holding out till training camp, beginning of the season, and then you throw an offer sheet out to them when the team that matches it can't be 10% over the cap and has to be cap compliant like immediately after after saying yes, after accepting the and matching the offer.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Like that idea certainly would make more sense than now, in my mind. But but like I guess with the Labanc thing, are you upset that GMs didn't at least try to offer sheet? Did that bother you in any way, or did you look at it as like the reality is what you said, Kevin? Basically, it wasn't going to happen, so why make the shot?
I think it was more the fact that Doug Wilson has done a really good job at getting these guys to buy in to what he's doing in San Jose. And I think just because it was I think the reports were that no one offered to offered a contract to Labanc, but that doesn't mean that they didn't talk to him and say, "Are you willing to sign for this?" And I think it just sounded like Labanc wanted to stay in San Jose and was willing to do this 1 year deal and then go from there. Because that's the thing is just because you put a contract towards a player doesn't mean that they're going to sign it, right? So if you're going to because I think the other rumor was that Aho wasn't the Canadians' first choice to offer sheet. They wanted Braden Point, but Braden Point made it very clear that he wants to stay in Tampa. So they moved on and offer sheeted Sebastian Aho.
Yeah.
So on the topic of Braden Point, I don't know about you guys and girls, but I this list of restricted free agents that aren't signed yet is just incredible to me. I don't know if we've seen something quite like this before, but and we've talked about Marner, we've talked about Point, but some other bigger names still yet to sign: Rantanen, Laine, Matthew Tkachuk, Kyle Connor, a bunch of other forwards as well. Amongst D-men, Charlie McAvoy and Jacob Trouba. You got David Binnington and David Riddick as well for goalies. So, what a logjam we're seeing here right now. And is it that one of these guys, say Marner, is holding up the process for everybody else?
Yeah, I think they're all waiting to see what that first contract is, and then and then I'll react from there. No one wants to be the person that. No one wants to be the one that gets either lowballed or with the teams get taken to the cleaners, and then everyone else has to follow suit.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially with Tkachuk. They probably are waiting to see what that Marner deal looks like.
I think I don't know if it's Marner. I think they're waiting for somebody, but it seems like the most marketable name we've seen out there is Marner. But it could be they're just waiting for someone else to sign. I mean, I do think I think Elliot Friedman has made a really good point though, and I do think this is going to tick off the Players Association, but I do think a couple of them are going to sign the quote-unquote bridge deal because they have the opportunity to make more money because of that contract. Now, I don't know if it's going to be – I don't think it's going to be Marner, and I don't even think it may not even be Tkachuk, but I do see someone in an American city like a Mikko Rantanen. I can see him signing a bridge deal – especially where Colorado is, and we'll get into that a little bit more with their draft in a couple of seconds here. But where Colorado is at, I could see a guy like Mikko Rantanen taking a bridge deal because I think that there's a really good opportunity for him there to make a little bit more money a little bit later. Marner, I think he is absolutely firm that he wants his $10 to $12 million. He wants his Austin Matthews contract, and I think he will wait for it because I think he feels he has a legitimate case. And I think Matthew Tkachuk knows his value, and I think he's willing to work with the Flames in terms of a contract, but I think he knows his worth, and I don't necessarily think he's going to he's going to want a bridge deal, because I don't know if that American deal is going to really impact the Canadian teams that much anyway. I think that's going to be more beneficial for a lot of the American teams than it is the Canadian team. That's why. So I kind of see Mikko Rantanen being a guy that does a bridge deal.
I think, there's definitely going to be a couple. I even think Marner would be one of those ones who wants a bridge deal, because that's what. Just because I think he wants to stay in Toronto, but he wants his money. So like maybe they just I think that bridge deal at the money that he's looking for is probably what ends up going there, because then it allows the Leafs and them to renegotiate something later on.
I just don't think. I think with Marner, the reason I don't think he wants the bridge deal is I legitimately think after what he saw Dubas do with Nylander, I think that he thinks that I think the Marner camp thinks that there is a way to get the money. I mean, I think if Dubas was stronger with William Nylander, I think that there would be a better chance of a bridge deal. But I think what he saw with that contract negotiation with William Nylander, I think he's willing to wait. That's just me. I don't know, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But getting to the draft here and getting to the point of getting like these special players and these great players. Of course, Tyler and I were at the draft. We got to see Alex Newhook be drafted by the Colorado Avalanche. We were sort of expecting Alex Newhook to be a Vancouver Canuck, a good BCHL hockey prospect, pretty good kid from all accounts. Jess, you had a chance to cover Alex Newhook. From your perspective, tell us what you know about him. Tell us kind of what you've seen from him and what the Colorado Avalanche have got in terms not only of a hockey player, but as a human being as well.
Yeah, no, I first started watching Alex when I was in Victoria. I was working for Black Press and I covered the Grizzlies. Obviously, he when he's on the ice, eyes just directly go to him. His stats last year, especially, they speak for themselves. 102 points in 53 games with 38 goals. There's a reason he won as many accolades as he did at the end of the year. And when he was here in Prince George, he was playing the Spruce Kings. Eventually, the Spruce Kings did sweep them, but Alex, in the playoffs as a total, had 24 points in 15 games. So he had 6 points in total against Prince George. And there were a lot of scouts in the building as well every night when he was here. Obviously, we had a couple of the Spruce Kings drafted into the NHL as well. But Alex was obviously one of the highly touted prospects going into the draft. But yeah, I mean, he's very quick. He's a playmaker. He's very passionate. He doesn't let he showed his emotions and his feelings a few times. But I think what Colorado got, I think, they've got something pretty special down the pipe.
Do you think he's going to be, do you see this as kind of I'm using air quotes here, or are you seeing it kind of as a steal for the Colorado Avalanche? Is it something that a lot of teams are going to be ahead, are going to be, you know what, we really missed out on this guy?
I think so. I think there's going to be, I thought maybe he'd go a little sooner. But I do think, maybe, a few teams are going to kind of kick themselves and think, why didn't we? But obviously he's going to Boston College next year. And they've had players out of that program like Jordy Ben and Tyler Bozak. So, I think he's a talent for sure.
What was he like to interview?
I interviewed him right before he went and played for Team Canada. He's kind of shy, believe it or not. I think he's very humble. He doesn't like to brag about himself a whole lot. So you could tell, he's shy, but he does know, he has a great hockey sense, obviously.
My other question before is there something that the scouts said that he needed to work on? Did you hear anything about that, or
not necessarily? I think just so many of them were just really in awe of his quickness and his edge. So I think there wasn't a whole lot to pick at in terms of him. There's not. I don't think there was a whole lot. To pick off about him. I think just like I said, eyes are drawn to him. So whenever he was on the ice, you kind of, you'd look for him, and he is very quick. So if you saw him one place, you'd kind of turn around and be like, where is he? Where'd he go? He's already over there. I think Colorado got a really good steal. So. And the Avs also picked Tyson Jost in 2016 he's a BCHL draftee as well. So the Avalanche always obviously have their eyes on BCHL talent.
Yeah, they would appear they certainly have a comfort level going that route in the draft. Jess, you mentioned covering Spruce Kings games and not a lot of scouts in the building. When you were in Victoria, did you find there was fairly regular scouting presence at Grizzlies games?
Yeah. You saw them here and there. I think especially at the playoffs here, obviously they were in Victoria as well, but there were quite a few in the building here in Prince George, obviously for Alex, but like I mentioned, we had 2 Spruce Kings go, one to Winnipeg, and that was Logan Neaton, and then Leighton Ahag went to Vegas. So obviously they were there for a mix of a few players, but a lot of people obviously knew Alex was in the building.
Just a bit of a tangent here for a moment, me being a Northerner, and you're in Prince George there. What was it like for the Spruce Kings to be on their run this year? That had to be a huge boost for Prince George civic pride, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, it was. My fiance, we also work together. So he's covered them for a little bit longer than I have. He's been here for almost 3 years. But, he said too, and just the atmosphere in the city, that there's, the Cougars are struggling right now in the WHL. So the Spruce Kings kind of gave the city that hockey taste. That building is never the rolling mixed concrete arena. It's never really been like that. It's loud. They could only do standing room tickets, and then even those sold out. So it was always to capacity. And it's just, I think the city, putting Prince George on a map, it's been really good for the city. And they're also the first community-owned team to win a BCHL Fed Cup title. So obviously that, plays a part in it as well, just because, Prince George is very prideful on its community.
Yeah, you mentioned the building. I mean, I've had the opportunity to watch a few games, and they actually broadcast a couple of games just doing color commentary for another BCHL team visiting Prince George. And, you saw in those times the potential for that to be a rockin' atmosphere. Now I'm kind of jealous that I missed out on it this time.
We had, and it wasn't even, some people that weren't even totally in the hockey scene or engaged in it before, they kind of came in and really, they kind of took on to what they were seeing. Obviously it's really neat to see so many people see the city. So like you saw Spruce Kings jerseys everywhere. Hours before games, people are already downtown, lineups outside the arena. So I think it's something for Prince George that, obviously they're not going to forget anytime soon.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Howard, for bringing that up, because I do think one of the things that I think gets really not noticed as much, because probably with me living out here in Vancouver and kind of, but spending a little bit of time in Kamloops, is kind of the power of what junior hockey can do to Prince George is not a terribly small community, but it's not a super large community. And I think it's great to kind of see how junior hockey can unify a city the same in a lot of ways, the same way that an NHL team can unify a city too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, the Cougars, they're struggling a bit right now. They're in a kind of a rebuild mode. So, people are not, that is a tough, scene. But I think, and a lot of people, when Logan Neaton, a goaltender from the Spruce Kings, he was drafted to the Jets this year. Taylor Gauthier plays for the Cougars, and he was ranked number 7 among North American goalies, and he didn't end up getting drafted, which came across as a big, everyone here was like, shocked. But then, you see a BCHL, they call him kind of the baby goaltender under Taylor. He gets drafted to the Jets. So I think that just goes to show, how much recognition that garnered, and even obviously in the NHL world to have a BCHL goaltender end up going. I think it was in the top 130 overall. So, good for him.
Yeah. You were mentioning to me about Taylor, the goaltender that wasn't drafted. How is he taking? Like how is he taking it? What's kind of his plan going forward? Do you know anything? What's going to happen there? Or?
Yeah, he actually ended up. He did go to Boston, the Boston Bruins development camp. He got an invite, but obviously, he was quiet on social media. He came out a few days later, obviously, very passionate, and said that, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder next year, which, I think anybody in his position would feel that way. It was a big shock to a lot of people. I think a lot of, teams and media outside of Prince George as well were pretty surprised to not hear his name called, because there were obviously other goalies drafted way lower than him that ended up going. So people were, wondering what's the issue, with Taylor. Is there an issue? So nobody really knows for sure, but, obviously he's going to play with some fire next year.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Sean, did you have any questions? Heidi, did you have any questions? I don't want to hog the conversation.
No, you guys have really covered everything I was hoping to get going today.
No questions for me either.
Oh, I guess, in terms of, like, for me, and Jess, you're on social media a lot too, but you talked about, you talked about how he was quiet and then he kind of came out with a chip on his shoulder. You do have to be kind of careful how you respond in these situations.
Yeah.
And of course, there was the controversy around what Jordan Binnington said when he was younger on social media. So, if you could give players like that advice, and I'm sure, Taylor isn't the only one. I'm sure that there's other players in Prince George that thought, I was going to make it in the NHL, and I didn't do it. It didn't happen for me. So, in terms of advice that you would give for people like that, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think, everybody, as soon as, the draft is over, and we had a lot of people commenting, on our website and stories, they were shocked, like I said, that, Logan Neaton went before Taylor Gauthier. And I think a lot of people just wanted to know how Taylor felt about it. So obviously he took a couple days. He probably, obviously, understandably, was probably very choked. But I think, you kind of have to settle down and wait and, kind of collect yourself before you go out on social media and kind of let your feelings go, because then, people like to dig up old social media posts of yours, and then, it can kind of turn into a mess. But he only really, I think, came out on Instagram from what my understanding was, and maybe Twitter. But, it was just basically, saying it was only going to fuel him, and that he was going to work harder than ever, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess, obviously, next year, that will be something that we'll be watching, and I'm sure, other, scouts will probably be back out watching him as well.
Is there any other players in Prince George with the Cougars or the Spruce Kings that you think we should have an eye on coming up here?
Well, I know we had one Cougar drafted. Cole Moberg ended up going to Chicago Blackhawks. Other than that, I think going in, it was obviously Taylor was the number one that a lot of people were, sitting and waiting and thinking, and as it got closer to the end, like I said, a lot of people were just kind of, starting to panic and were like, hey, time's running out. Like, what's going to happen? And even, Cole Moberg went before him, which obviously a lot of people were expecting it, to be the other way around. And we have a lot of recruits coming into the Spruce Kings this year. There's got to be upwards of, we've been getting press releases every day. Got to be upwards of 20 or more coming in here. Obviously, a lot of them left last year. So we'll obviously have to see a lot of the new faces. And then obviously those that shine will obviously have eyes on them. Before we move on to a couple of other topics here, in terms of the BCHL, this is, I think it's a good thing. I mean, the AHL, Alberta Junior Hockey League, got a lot of notoriety because of Cale Makar being drafted to Colorado. The quality of the BCHL hockey, tell us a little bit about where you think that is in terms of like I'm not obviously not compared to NHL, but in terms of 1 to 10 in terms of junior hockey, is it? Tell us a little bit about it from your perspective. How good is it? I think if anyone has an opportunity to watch a BCHL team, take it. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's junior hockey. What's there really to give? Why wouldn't I go see? If you're in Prince George, people think, hey, Prince George Cougars, I'm going there. But I think now that's kind of turned here, especially with, seeing a team like the Spruce Kings. Lower level hockey can, sometimes be a better product. It just depends, people have to, go and find out for themselves. I think there's great talent. There's generational talent. Obviously, someone like Alex Newhook and the other couple of Spruce teams that ended up being drafted. If you had the chance to watch them in person, like, me and my fiance have, you can kind of sit there and say, people aren't like, well, who's that person? Like, well, what's the BCHL? Once you have a chance to watch, you can really see why those players were taken for what they were.
Yeah. Because I think one of the things that I have been thinking about, and it came away from me, especially after the WHL Game 7, where a certain television station, Sportsnet, couldn't find a way to cover Game 7.
You're on this again, Cup.
Well, where I'm going here is I think that. I mean, we talk about a guy like Ryan Beach and Cam Robinson and all of these guys that have found a way to scout and talk about this. I do think that it would be really important and really valuable that there is more eyes on these products, because we're not only are we bringing up next National Hockey League players, but I do think that it's better hockey than we are giving it credit for. I think the idea that it's just the BCHL, it's the BCHL, whatever. Yeah. I think that there's something more to that I do think that more eyes should be on that product.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happened here now is I think next year, when the Spruce Kings start their season, I think, maybe at the beginning of last year, seats were not filled. But I think after what happened here last year, I think it's definitely changed the tune of how BCHL and junior hockey is viewed here. And I'm hoping... and we watched, they had live streams of the games and they were broadcasted, online, and comparing to, if you watched when they played in Victoria, it was astounding how many empty seats there were. And there were so many, and people were commenting like, well, where's all their fans? That's what we mean is, here it ended up getting out and the contagiousness ended up spreading. But I think if you do have a chance to watch, and it's not overly expensive either, if that's a concern for people. But if you get a chance to watch, you get to see someone like the Alex Newhooks, that down the line, you can say, hey, that was a BCHL product. And I know it makes the league very happy as well, of course.
Of course, yeah, because it's like, oh, hey, Alex Newhook played here. You have a chance to see other players play in the league, right? So, some of them end up graduating to the WHL and then move on. And of course, some players don't, and that happens too. But I do think I think more eyes on more hockey product in Canada, I think would be tremendous for everyone involved. That's kind of my point. I'm not trying to necessarily be overly bitter, Tyler, about what happened with the Vancouver Giants.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, and I think the BCHL is also a large college route. The Victoria, if you look over in Victoria, they have the Royals and the WHL and the Grizzlies. The Royals over there do better, but here now, I think it's changed here where, the Cougars were the first team a lot of people thought about when they thought hockey in Prince George. But I think, with what the Spruce Kings have done, now it's obviously going to be a different vibe here next season.
For sure. Yeah. So we'll be talking a little bit more. One of the things I know that we also want to do as well is kind of spend a little bit more time WHL junior hockey content, because it is something that is missing a lot. So that's something we're going to be doing as well here on the hockey podcast as well. But I do want to kind of finish off with something a little bit fun. Hockey social. There's the political social media. Jess, I see you a lot commenting on political social media. I comment a lot on political social media. But the hockey social media, it's a little bit different. I think there's some fun. There's some, brevity, but there's also some rage and outrage. I mean, especially when some Jason Bruff was congratulating Ryan Beach, there was a whole controversy there. But who are you guys as some of your favorite, this is a must follow hockey social media person?
It's sad, the one person I always, like to follow is Jason Botchford. So, him, passing away so suddenly, it's definitely missed. I know in Canucks world, but I don't know about anybody else's teams.
He's a Leafs fan, but Steve Dangle is a good follow. He always understands that it's a game, and despite his yelling YouTube videos, he understands that, and he calls himself out on a lot of his issues as well. And then Wyatt Arndt, I would say, the stanchion. I think he gets it too. It's like you gotta have fun with it. You can't get too wrapped up in the seriousness of the salary cap and how players are playing and the matrix of hockey analytics that there is out there now. But for me, I always find the people that make you laugh and make you you would want to go out and have a beer with type deals. So, and usually those people aren't even the ones that get much notoriety because they're just your friends. So yeah, just find people that make you laugh and make you think, and don't push your buttons too much.
Nothing wrong with pushing some buttons.
I can't say that I have a particular favorite. I mean, there's so many options out there, right?
Ryan Beach was one until he got snapped up by the Canucks.
Yeah, that's Tyler. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't have a particular favorite. I mean, there's so many different opinions out there that are available now. It's it's good to have a bit of diversity, but Twitter can be a place where too much diversity can make it a less enjoyable experience as well.
So for me, on the Flames side, I like following Tori Peterson and Kristen Anderson. Like, even though Tori works for the Flames and Kristen is somebody who works for the Sun and is a Flames beat reporter. So, but it doesn't mean that they still don't have like fun with their job and they're talking about interesting things with the Flames, not just straight analytics or anything like that. So they're definitely good follows. And then for like just kind of NHL stuff in general, I just like Elliot Friedman because he jokes around with stuff, and I love his whole thing about the abbreviations and how that just makes people so outraged. I love all of that. So
yes, his OTT versus air was like a bunch. I love reading them because I actually can't understand what he's saying, but it's like what? It's funny. I like that too. I think the NHL Trumps and the NHL U.S. political leaders. I don't know if you guys follow. And
NHL Trump is that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah,
one.
sorry, I forgot to mention that because I've been like actually like putting them in our little chat group later. But yes, NHL Trump is hilarious.
Yeah, this is not actually Donald Trump, but and I think Roberto Luongo. I think, as terms of a player, he kind of set the standard to me. But it was really, it's really funny because when I hear what people talk about what Jason Botchford did in social media, it seemed so simple what he ended up doing, but he did it so brilliantly that it's hard for people to keep up to what he did. It was so like. I almost think he needs to have an award named after him in terms of best social media presence, like in terms of that, because like it seems so simple, but he did it so well. Like, I think it's hard. In terms of thinking of anybody else on a lot of other teams. Like, I think there are some really strong social media presences in other teams. I'm not saying that there's not, but it feels like Jason Botchford rose above everybody else. Like, he was the standard. I think the three Canuck fans here, may be a little bit biased on that, but it's hard to think of anyone that was better than Jason Botchford at it.
Well, I've said this before. I mean, he was a guy that did things his way and was enormously well received for that. And that's hard to accomplish in the abyss that can be social media.
Yeah. For sure, especially Twitter. Twitter it's a harder thing to cut through than I think Facebook at times. But he did it so well, in my mind. But yeah, I thought that would be a fun thing to end up on because there's a lot of other things to talk about other than being serious and kind of the social media presence. And I know I spend far too much time on it myself. It's good to kind of talk a little bit about. Also, Jillian Fisher. We have to give a shout out. I have to give a shout out to her because what she's done is really, it's fun. It's, kind of quirky. I'm becoming a big fan of her as well. She's done a really good job.
She's got the best job title on her website that I've ever seen. Sports anthropologist.
Oh yeah. 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 And she covers every team. It's fun. It's comedy. It's kind of new school, which is great. So Jess, thanks for coming on. How do we follow you? Kind of what's going on in the Prince George world that anything we need to be aware of, what you guys are up to up there?
Well, Twitter is always where I am. I think I have, let me check here. There is a link to our website as well. So anything we write, either me or my fiance Kyle, about hockey related or anything, it's always on our website. We always retweet it. So if anyone ever is looking for anything, it'll always be over there.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
What's the website?
Our website is princegeorgematters.com, and then we have a sports section and we have a local news, and they go on both. So if anyone is ever poking around, that's where it'll be.
Do you guys cover both sports and news up there? Like both you and
Do
Kyle?
we what, sorry?
Do both you and Kyle do double duty?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. And how do we follow you on Twitter?
My handle or the website?
All of them.
Okay. Mine is at JJ_Fedigan. Our website handle is at PGMatters. And then Kyle's handle is at Kyle Balzer. So those are the places you will see anything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. We've got some of the other things were going on before I Heidi, Sean, and Tyler do shameless plug as well. We didn't talk about Don Cherry this week, but I do, maybe next time we get together, I do want to have a deep dive, a longer conversation about Don Cherry. I think it's worthy of more than maybe a 10 or 15 minute conversation about the impact that Don Cherry has had. And I wanted to save that for another one. We had a couple of other things, and I thought with the Ferlund signing, I thought this was a bit of a bigger news than Don Cherry, so we'll get into that. And we are planning, Heidi has offered to host this as well. We want to do an all-female hockey panel, so we're working on that as well. And Heidi has offered to host. And I'm actually very excited about this idea of Heidi hosting, because, my voice could be annoying for some people, and Heidi's is not as annoying. Right, Heidi?
Yeah. Yep. But so it's an idea I'm kind of throwing around. I have some ideas of people to ask as well to be on. So including Jess, maybe if you have any interest of maybe coming back on,
Absolutely.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. All right. And Heidi, how do we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter and all of my social medias at Heidi Amazeballs. So HEID Amazeballs.
And not that Sean and Tyler, not that you guys are not fantastic. It's, you're not crying, are you? No one's crying. Okay.
No, we're good. No, all good here. But
Tyler, how do we follow you?
I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
And Sean?
Beardy Connect 03 on Twitter.
All right. And of course, I'm at KEVOLE. Thanks everyone for listening, and we might be back next week or in a couple weeks. Who knows? Talk to you soon. Bye for now.